This is a computer that I got at $10. Well, I didn't get it. My uncle got it for $10 at a garage sale one Saturday morning. It is a completely unlabeled Alienware computer, which leads me to believe that it is early enough in the 2000s that this is a true Alienware computer and not a fancy-looking Dell. And, by the way, Dell computers, not too bad. Although they use cheap parts. The problem with Dell owning Alienware is Alienware computers are really expensive and have amazing video cards and stuff, but they also use the same cheap parts, such as Beztech power supplies, or should I say, Beztech heaters, essentially. That's pretty much all they're good for. You know, let's see, what else do they use? They use other cheap parts, like, let's see, I'm trying to think of some off the top of my head. I can't really think of them right now. There's other things that I could go on rants about. I'm just tired and I can't think of them right now. This system has more USB ports than anyone would ever need on a computer that I think was released in 2003. Just saying. Because, first off, it boldly advertises USB down here. You can see 2 ports right there. I think they're USB 1.1, and headphone jack and microphone jack, and those are interesting. There's a funny story behind those. And we'll get to that later. There are 2 USB 2.0 ports. I believe they're 2.0. And the computer acted like it. Why exactly are you focusing on the floor camera when the computer is smack dab in the middle of the focal range? It is not focusing. It is on manual focus. What? Hang on a minute. I gotta change that. I don't know why it's set that way. Alright, no wonder I was having so many problems the other day trying to record with this camera. Now you can see them. Oh, but it's still deciding to focus on the floor for some reason. Regardless, there they are. The USB 2.0 ports. Yes, they are USB 2.0 because it's got the USB symbol and then a plus next to it. And you got 2 true PS2 ports. I love that. 2 9-pin serial connectors. Parallel. Never seen this on a computer this old. That does have a nice Realtek. What is your issue, camera? There you go. It has optical out. You know, you don't see that on computers this old, usually. You don't see that on computers nowadays, sometimes. Actually, a lot of the times, unless you get a Media Center PC. Don't remember what that is. It's only labeled with a symbol. I don't know what those 2 are, actually. Or actually, that's labeled SPDIF. But it is, in fact, an optical port. So that's interesting. You got your line out, line in, and microphone jacks. Ethernet. Why are you having so much trouble focusing, camera? It's kind of annoying. Maybe I'm too close. That could be it. Then, back to the thing I was saying about the USB ports. 2 more USB 1.1 ports. That is 6 USB ports on a Windows XP computer. I don't think I have ever seen that in all of my life, with the exception of my final Windows XP computer, although that was after I had to replace the motherboard. It only had 4 on it first, and then I think when I quit using it, it may have had 8 on it, because I had to replace the motherboard. And the motherboard had several on it. Yes, and this is a riser card. This is actually plugging into the front panel USB header on the motherboard. Why did I say a riser card? Did I call it that? I'm pretty sure I called it a riser card. I meant to say slot blank. There's actually no card in here, as far as I know. Yeah, there's not. There's no card. And then this slot blank right here is very interesting. I don't know if you really want to call them slot blanks. It's basically things in slot blanks. They actually are brackets. Now this is what's interesting about the headphone and microphone jacks. they are not plugged into the motherboard. This is kind of a silly thing about this computer that doesn't really make sense. There's this wire going through the computer case from the front panel back here. And then, to use the front panel jacks, you have to plug these in. Microphone. Headphone. I'm pretty sure I haven't... Well, yeah, it's a stereo jack. So you can switch the microphone with the line in, and then that'll actually work that way. But yeah, isn't that silly? I mean, it doesn't automatically switch. You have to... Like, it's just an easier-to-reach spot. So if you want to use headphones, you have to unplug your speakers... Like, you'd have to unplug your speakers from this and plug this in, then plug your headphones into the front of the case. It doesn't really make sense. And yes, I am kind of like UXW Bill, replacing... Now, the parallel port I don't care a whole lot about, because pretty much every parallel device either has... Pretty much every parallel device these days that you would still want to use, aside from some even just slightly older HP printers, they either have USB connectors on them, or they don't have drivers for a decent version of Windows. I'm not saying Windows XP isn't decent. I'm just saying, by decent, I mean decently new. And then two 9-pin serial ports, those I have a problem with, because if I had my own computer, like my main computer, if it had 9-pin serial ports, I would use them all the time. Like, you know, just plug in a 9-pin serial Microsoft mouse and, you know, just for fun. And that I actually would do occasionally if the batteries in my mouse died, because most of my other computer mice are just not good. Either that or there's just something wrong with them. Anyway, let's start getting into the computer. And as you can see, this is a rather fancy power supply for a Windows XP computer. This computer predates this power supply by, you know, a whole generation as far as computers are concerned. But yeah, let's go ahead and take it apart. There is one interesting thing about this case that I have never seen on another computer. It has 3 screw holes on the door. Automatic ISO. I kind of turned on automatic ISO. I think that was a silly idea. Also, the door, to use UXW Bill terms, why in the world do people feel like they need to screw the ever-living, whatever the heck he said, I don't even remember what he said now, whatever he would say, out of these screws? Do you see this depression in the case? Like, that is ridiculous. That is absolutely insane. That is absurd. This camera has terrible autofocus, I'm just saying. But yeah, do you see what I'm talking about? Like, someone just screwed this in so much that it dented the door. And it's also down here on this bottom one. I don't think anyone ever actually screwed this one in at the factory. Or not really factory, at the assembly line. I'm sure it was the case at that point in time. But, yeah. Because that one's obviously not dented. And so there must not have been one originally. And plus, as you can see here, this one I plugged in, screwed in the middle, is actually all stripped out. Like, I think I got it from another computer. So, yeah. And it's also a different shape of screw head. Yeah, I don't think this computer came with thumb screws in it. Because, like, I think these are both from the green computer. If you guys know what I'm talking about with the green computer. Anyway, I've unscrewed it. Let's take the door off. Enough of my chit-chat. Door is a bit of a tight fit. I think the door locking stuff, I think it's gotten a little bit too. Ooh. It's like burning adhesive, I think. You'll figure out why in a minute. These fans are super duper dusty. I haven't actually gone to the trouble of cleaning them super thoroughly. So, this is a nice fan. It just says turbo on it. They're super loud too. And this Aspire fan was not originally in here. Took it out from a kiosk, or a kiosk slash, I guess, possibly point of sale style case CyberPower computer. Because there was not one here originally, and it was causing the computer to get super duper hot because there was no air circulation through the main portion of the computer. And this is an interesting fan right here on the processor, which, by the way, is an AMD Athlon XP 1500 Plus. It's really slow for some reason. I think it's 1.33 gigahertz. It is a tri-colored fan. It only has 3 LEDs as opposed to the normal 4. And one of them's blue, one of them's green, and one of them's red. Which makes sense for a computer because RGB. This is an NVIDIA GeForce 7600 GT. Pretty sure I'm pretty sure it is the fastest and best GPU. Camera. Pretty sure it is the fastest and best video card that you can get on the AGP bus, as far as NVIDIA branding goes. Because, as you can see, it is such a late card, if I can do this, that it has no sort of fan on it whatsoever. Because we bought this card to replace to replace the video card in what, at the time, was my computer. It was the custom-built Windows XP computer, with a Soyo motherboard and whatnot. I've actually found the disc for that motherboard somewhere, which is kind of funny. Before this was a Windows 8 computer. This was my computer at one point. Of course, back then it ran Windows XP. This video card was in that originally. And we replaced it with this one very late, like when they were phasing out AGP. Because the video card in that one did this weird thing where it failed to render 3D or text mode stuff. Like on the BIOS screen, you could see the little guy, you know, in the top left corner of the screen, the Phoenix logo. And then on the right, you could see the Energy Star logo. And there was like some weird, glitchy, weird borders around that. And the text on the screen was just blank. Like there was nothing there. The computer did boot up successfully. And the Windows XP boot screen, of course, looked fine. But when you got into Windows, everything was a little glitchy. And when you tried to start a game, the computer would just freeze up. So that was the most interesting video card failure I've ever seen. I don't remember if it was a failure of the fan or if it was just something else. Of course, that wouldn't have been the first time I've seen that. It has a Maxtor 20GB hard drive, which sounds like it's struggling a little bit. I'm going to be completely honest with you. This is the factory hard drive. It did have another Fujitsu 8GB hard drive with Windows Millennium Edition on it, but the Maxtor had Windows XP on it, and all the drivers for the computer were installed on it. The Fujitsu drivers were not installed for the computer on it, so it must have been from another computer. I've since repurposed that drive in my Pentium 1, which I will show off. Well, I've already shown that off in another video, but I will show off more thoroughly in a follow-up video to this one. There is a Sony 3.5-inch floppy disk drive, and the power connector's falling out again, it looks like. To replace the white one that was in the computer. I mean, it's a black case. Why would there be a white floppy disk drive in it? Of course, there is this interesting bezel over it, so you couldn't really tell unless you looked at the shutter. Then there's this, as you can see there, 52 times max. Although I think it's lying about that. It seems like it's only 8 times max. Although I don't know why it would be lying. It's a Samsung drive. Although it doesn't look much like one. That's the weird part. Then this is not, that thing's actually not an optical drive. There is one behind it. It's just another fancy bezel like is on the front of the floppy disk drive. The optical drive there is a Sony DVD-R. Neither of these drives can write, although I don't really care about that in this computer. And I'm sorry if I'm talking fast. I don't have a lot of recording space on this card, and the battery only has 30 minutes left on the camera. So, anyway. And also, when I actually had a 60 gig Seagate hard drive plugged into the system. It had a 40-wire cable plugged in, but then I turned the computer on with a Seagate hard drive, and it refused to continue through the boot process. The BIOS stopped and said, 80 conductor cable not installed. Said 80 conductor cable is now installed, as you can see here. I don't know why it was like that. The hard drive apparently just didn't support the other kind of cable. And oh my. Yeah, that tape is deteriorating. I taped a little, or maybe it's the rubber. Tape feels a little funny, but oh crap. Either that or it's melting the IDE cable, which is rubbing up against it. I can't tell which. Anyway, it does smell very strongly of something burning in this system, and it's probably the adhesive on this. Just getting hot, you know? Because this is just Scotch tape, like gift wrapping tape. And I taped this thermometer to it, because there's a little digital readout on the front of the case that shows you the temperature. Just like in my green computer, although the green computer, I think it's that middle one right there. Yeah. You can see there. It has, oh my goodness, I need to eat. It has a temperature dial, an analog dial. Oh, I thought that was kind of cool on that system. And yeah. So this is a Sony DVD-R. I think I already said that. This Maxtor 20 gig hard drive is, I think it's later, but it's the exact same size as the one. Dadgummit. Give me a minute. Okay, so my grandpa's going to be at our house here in a little bit, so I need to finish this part of the video, then I guess I'll go charge up the camera and finish the rest of the video. This hard drive is, while newer, almost identical to the hard drive in my HP Pavilion. This little thing over here. Well, it's not in there anymore, it's in my Power Macintosh now. That thing served me well when I actually used it. I used WinImage on it to write DMF disks, so that was kind of cool. Of course, my Pentium 1 will do that nice now, and with my Pentium 1, I have the advantage of it not being very loud. Anyway, back to the computer. As you can see, there's all those wires going to the front panel, and there's 6 LEDs on the front of the case, and they're all separate, like you can see them. Like, that's an LED right there, and so is that. And so is that, and that, and that, and that. Those are plugged in through two 2-pin power connectors, just like in the green computer with its light bars on the side. And the one on the right constantly comes unplugged for some reason, so I have to be very careful when I'm working inside the system. Let's look at the, see if I can look at the motherboard real quick. There, I'm assuming that's the North Bridge. Hasn't blown up like in the green computer. Right there, there is the single 1 GB RAM chip, which I know is not really an ideal, is really not ideal for performance, but it's the best I have that doesn't have something wrong with it. And I had to replace it anyway. This computer had a lot of things wrong with it. Had a bad video card, bad power supply, which we'll get to in a minute, because there's something really funny about the one I have in the machine. Bad RAM, and I couldn't get the hard drive to actually work when I first started using it, I don't think. Although it started behaving after a little bit, and it still works. And, of course, this Gigabyte video card is what I replaced the crummy one in here with. And actually, the power supply that was in the system is right over there, underneath that AT class. I don't know if you can read what it says. There you go. Turn the camera sideways so you can kind of see. Something or other switching turbo, something or other. Probably the same brand as the fans, considering how computer manufacturers usually go. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it was like the computer would sometimes come on, other times the power button just wouldn't respond. Other times it would come on, but the power LED would have some weird brightness variation, none of the fans would be as fast as they should be, and I couldn't get anything to display on the monitor. So it definitely had some issues. And the one in here is kind of hilarious. Your eyes do not deceive you, okay? This is a Cooler Master 600 watt power supply with 18 amps on the 12 volt rail. And 30 amps on the 5 volt rail and 25 amps on the 3.3 volt rail. That's quite a bit of power at this system's disposal. But if you're wondering why it's in here, I don't have another computer I can actually use this in. Of course, I have another computer right there, the computer that came in without a power supply right now. But the thing is, the fan uses normal ball bearings, and they've gotten deformed. You might be able to hear a little bit of rattling from that fan when we're running the system. And the reason I have it in this computer is the 3 chassis fans in the system, plus a super duper powerful CPU fan, keep a lot of air circulated through the system. And I don't know that you could fit enough things on this motherboard to stress that power supply. So, because of that, the power supply never gets too hot, and so the fan never has to speed up. It's not near as annoying when it's not running at its full speed. When it runs at its full speed, it makes this terrible noise that makes you want to pull your head off because you start getting a headache from it. And that wire likes to do that. There we go. But yeah, so that's the reason it's in here. And yeah, it is definitely from a much newer computer. It has SATA power connectors on it. 3 of them. And this is not a SATA system, so... Although everything's zip-tied. And yes, I have a thing about that. Because this Molex connector going to the hard drive, it was zip-tied to the video card Molex connector, and I could not get it to reach to both. So, I kind of had to fix that. Camera, come on. Right, there we go. But yeah, I don't actually have speakers hooked up to the system right now because the speaker setup I had was really annoying because this has a very interesting Realtek audio card in it where the PC speaker beep goes through this line out if there are speakers plugged in. And the way I had it hooked up was there was no analog volume knob on the speaker set, so it was always running full blast, and that... There's always something about computers that can really get your heart beating. That sound card is one of those things. The first time that I had speakers plugged into this thing, when I turned it on, my heart almost beat it out of my chest because my ears were ringing from how loud that PC speaker was, or from how loud that PC beep was. It was ridiculous. Like, you can't even imagine. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and put this thing back together. You got to be very careful when you're putting it back together because it's one of these computers with a door-mounted fan, of course, as you can tell. Which I have nothing against that. That's actually a really cool thing about these older computers. Because it's designed to blow on the video card, although this motherboard's AGP slot is so low down that it doesn't actually do that. But these little bitty fan power wires can get pinched in the door and torn, and then the fan will no longer operate. There, that went on. Like I said, the door is a little bit bent, so it's hard to get it to go on. Now, let's go ahead and start screwing it back in. And because of the stupid bent door, it's kind of hard to get the screws to stay in sometimes. Alright, there we go. Get the last one in. This one's always the trickiest because it's bent the worst up here. And yes, I'm using my foot because I'm holding the camera in one hand. I don't even know if that's going to work. There we go. It's a little hard. And it's kind of getting pushed on by the case, but it works. It is in. And yeah, so I'll put this back in the shelf and then go upstairs to wait for my grandpa. See you there. And charge the camera because there's only 20 minutes left. Quick follow-up video. Or not follow-up video, follow-up clip. Oh, I'm so tired. This is the RAM chip that was in the computer when I first got it. Which, that was a while back, just so you know. This is PQI, apparently. DDR333, half a gig of RAM. So I don't think performance is probably actually increased when I replaced the RAM. And besides the fact that this RAM chip doesn't even work. Like, it was causing the computer to not boot up at all. The one in there is a Samsung chip, I do believe. Or a Samsung stick. Samsung? That's right. Oh my goodness. Thought that was incorrect suddenly. Anyway, it's a Samsung DDR400 chip. And I was, to my amazement, I didn't think that was actually going to fix anything because I thought it was probably going to be too new. To my amazement, the motherboard actually supports DDR400. And, like, it clocks it correctly, although for some reason occasionally, I think there's something wrong with the RAM slots. Occasionally it will read it as DDR133, but most of the time it reads it correctly as DDR400. So that's an interesting thing. Anyway, I've really got to go now. So, I will... Next time I start recording, I will boot up the computer and show you it running Windows XP Service Pack 3 with my custom inlighted disc because I could not find my real disc. I don't know when I made this, but it's an inlighted install with everything. Like, it has all my settings pre-configured, so I don't have to change any of my settings the way I like them. And has the UX theme patch and whatnot on it. and comes with Internet Explorer 8 and Service Pack 3 slipstreamed, all of the post-Service Pack 3 hotfixes and whatnot, and, on accident, Windows Genuine Advantage. Anyway, but yeah, I've really got to go now, because my grandpa might actually be upstairs now, and I've got to give him an iPad. So, alright, see you when I turn the computer on. Okay, you can't tell, but it has actually been a significant amount of time since I ended the actual system showcase. So I haven't really worked out how I'm going to do this. It's going to be a little tricky. Because the camera is on a tripod now, and I have to make sure I'm not blocking the camera's view. Although I don't really know why I don't really know why I thought I needed it on a tripod, because I really don't for this. But, I mean, it's better, I guess, for all of you. Anyway, one interesting thing, there is, here, 1 second. Tripod adjustments. Okay. There is a power button on the keyboard right here. There was a setting in the system's BIOS for power on by keyboard. Most of the power on buttons were like a modifier key, Control or Alt or Shift or something, and one of the function keys. However, it seems to have detected that this keyboard had a power button, and one of the options was power. And sure enough, when I push this power button, anyway, 1 second. Okay. Since we weren't actually doing a real power up there, let me point this kind of down here. Basically, this is the computer in its normal state when it's not actually operating. Then when I push the power button right here, I don't know if you can actually see that, but down there, well, that's not really important. Down there, there's a thermometer, and it is currently reading 74 degrees. Turn it back off. Now, for the real power on, for the real showcase. Little monitor saying no sync. I'm trying to operate the camera backwards, which is throwing me off. Because in the zoom controls backwards, you know. Anyway. It's kind of silly for me to have not cut any of this out, but I guess I am still kind of talking, so it's not that big of a deal. And the camera is at a bit of an angle, which is why the monitor looks funny, but don't worry about that. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. Anyway, for the real power on. There we go, past the post. Counting the RAM there, AMD Athlon XP 1500 plus. Hang on a second, let me I can't get the camera to expose right for the monitor. You know what? Hang on. I don't know why it's not really exposing correctly. I guess it's probably just because the screen's mostly black, but if I turn that light off over there, it might get a little better. I'm going to do that real quick. There we go. Still not exposing super great. I guess it's good enough. Windows XP Home Edition. There's no speakers hooked up, so it says playing log on sound, and it's not actually doing so. Okay, it looks like you can't really see the start menu. Let me zoom out a tiny bit. Okay. I think that's fair enough. Anyway, if you're very observant, you may have already noticed what my main use for the system is going to be. Good old slow hard drive. Just grinding away. Trying to load my antivirus software and stupid Realtek sound effects manager. That is the dumbest thing ever, by the way. Sound effect. Exit. We don't need you. And there's the NVIDIA graphics driver right there. We can actually see that okay. This camera's LCD isn't the greatest LCD in the world, so it'll probably be easier to see on the actual video. Now, so there's not a whole lot on the system. Let's go ahead and show you this. It's a 19.0 gigabyte hard drive, actually. Not quite 20. I don't know why that's the case, but that is the case. And 4.65 gigabytes are being used. I don't plan on using very much in this system, but if I do start running low on disk space, I have several much larger drives that I can throw in here as secondary drives. You can see here there's a 3.5-inch floppy disk drive. This is the physical floppy disk drive in the computer. This one that says 5.25-inch floppy disk. As you'll notice, it actually says removable disk right here. That is the VFD driver. So that's how that works. And there's CD drive right here and DVD drive. Let's go. There's not hard to play. Hardware. So if you look here, it says Mac Store 52049H4. That is the hard drive. Floppy disk drive. Samsung CD-ROM SH152A. Now the thing is, what I don't understand about that is it is not a 52 times drive. So I don't know why it claims it is. It's very strange. Then Sony DVD-ROM DDU1615. Again, that was from the same computer that I got the... That's from the same computer that I got the fan out of. However, the floppy disk drive, although it's also Sony, oddly enough, it was in the Falcon Northwest frag box, not one of the other kiosk systems. The floppy disk drive that came in the system that the DVD-ROM is out of was actually a Mitsumi. Anyway, kind of hear that power supply fan rattling. It shouldn't bother us too much though, since this system is so low power consumption. I can actually overclock I can very easily overclock the CPU in the BIOS by, like, you can choose what you can even choose what you want it to identify itself as. It really is a 1500 plus, I'm pretty sure. 1.33 gigahertz, 1 gigabyte of RAM. As you can see, powered by Enlight, because that is the disk I used. Team Mesalanius, gotta love that. You can check the description in pretty much any of my videos for a link to the Team Mesalanius YouTube channel and blog and stuff. You should really check that out, because it's like a co-op channel. And not a whole lot going on here. Automatic updates disabled, you know. Anyway. Now, what am I planning on doing with this system? Well, you'll notice here, you can barely see it. Well, you can make out the shape probably. This is a 1.44 megabyte double-sided high-density floppy disk. This is what I plan on using for the system, because the system is old enough that VFD Win works, virtual floppy disk drive. So I wouldn't have to buy a Win image. So if I stick the floppy disk in the drive, fire up VFD Win. Let's say here, let's open Firefox. Takes its own sweet time on this system. This system is really not very fast, but it's more than enough for Windows XP, I guess. What's odd is the installation of Windows XP that was on the system when I first got it was really slow. Like, I don't know why. But here we go, Firefox. Finally opened. Yes, allow this installation. Okay. So the computer is slow. There we go. WinRoll PC. Let's go ahead and go download. I don't know. Let's just go get a random Alienware operating system that's on floppy disks. Here. Let's go ahead and do PC-DOS. This is, I don't know if I've lost my connection or what, but it's not loading. There we go. Go ahead and download PC-DOS 7. This power supply fan is actually getting worse and worse. Down them all. Opens right up. Let's go ahead and open this 7-zip file. We'll extract it. Now, to open/create, browse. Let's go to PC-DOS 7, disk 1. Open. Now what you do with this is not as convenient as WinImage, but it does work. What you do is you right click on the virtual floppy disk drive. Well, see if I double click it. Oh, what? That's a new one. Okay. That's not supposed to happen. They're all 1.40 megabytes. What the heck? Well, actually, yeah. File mode. No. It is not working. Hold on a second. This did not happen earlier. Of course, everything has to break on video. See, if I open this image, has no problem opening it. Let's open VFD Win back up, so I can close that image. But can I open it from this? Yeah, no problem. Close it. But if I go over and open the PC-DOS disk, it tells me it's not formatted. That? I am not familiar with that error. Can I open disk 2? No. PC-DOS disks are supposed to be the same. Alright then. That's very weird. But we can... Let's just pick MS-DOS disk 2. Why not, right? Because I think DOS disk 1 might already be on there. Well, supplemental disk. Here, that'll be good enough. Basically, what you do is, now that it's mounted and it opened the window, we can close that. Close that too. We go to My Computer and see we can open the virtual floppy disk now in Explorer. Then we right click on it and say Copy Disk. Remember this window, guys? From way back in Windows 95? Select copy to 3.5-inch floppy A, click Start. OK. And it just goes ahead and it reads the source disk, which is actually just an image, so it goes super duper fast. And that takes a little bit, but it does finish. I think an LS120 drive is actually faster with this process. It's definitely faster just normal reading and writing, but I've never actually just looked at speed differences with direct copies. But yeah. And here's that power supply fan again. Let's see, what's the temperature say on the display? The video card is 100.8 degrees now, because that's where the thermometer was taped. right on the heatsink, and yeah. And this video card, when you're just using Windows, seems to hang out around, oddly enough, between 110 and 125. Like, it fluctuates a ton for some reason, but it's very odd. Of course, it doesn't have a fan, so I've never tried running 3D Mark or something on this card, I don't think. Well, I have, but not in quite a while. Okay, so now it's copied. I'll go ahead and close that image. And here's the disk. Put it back in the computer now. If I can find the opening, there we go. Floppy A. As you can see, this is obviously a physical disk. And it copied it no problem. So that's basically an alternative for WinImage. Of course, PC-DOS didn't seem to work. I don't really know why. But most things seem to work okay. Now what I don't understand why it didn't work, because I can throw in the real PC-DOS disk right here. This is the real PC-DOS disk. I will put it in the drive, and I can access it. So I don't know what's actually up with that. That's so weird. Apparently VFD just does not like that disk format. I can even open the IBM Professional Editor off of the disk. It's slow, but it does work. Well, of course it's slow. It's off of a floppy disk. But this is the IBM Editor. Let's click About. PC-DOS Editor. There we go. Let's eject the disk, and we'll go ahead and shut the computer down now. This video has gone on more than long enough. I foresee this system serving me well in coming years, and I can go ahead and install the WinImage evaluation if I need it for anything, such as the PC-DOS disks, but I don't think I'll really need that for very many of the things. And yeah, so I'm going to make a follow-up video of this after I get this one started rendering, and the follow-up video is going to be of my Pentium 1. So yeah, and go ahead and shut the computer down now. Windows XP Home Edition, shut down. Go and click OK, and it should start shutting down. So I don't know if you heard that hard drive. It doesn't sound super great, especially on spin down. But, you know. So, there you go. Over 30 minutes about this computer. And me talking 90 to nothing. Because that's how I am. And the camera just went way off focus. That power light is not actually round. Anyway. As always, thanks for watching. And I'll see you next time.